Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. Today's video is a video I meant to make a while ago regarding shadow analysis of various time frames to make sure everything is consistent. And I think I've discovered something that changes sort of the order, and maybe you can theorize on Tyler Robinson's movements based on the different time frame. I've speculated recently that the 8:06 time frame that was reported in news outlets of being the time where Tyler Robinson walks by one of those initial sort of TMZ cameras, they said that was at 8:06, and that's absolutely not correct at all. In fact, I believe it's after the shot that you're seeing on the screen right now. So we see this shot right here. We see the his vehicle pull in to this area at 8:23 in the morning, and then we later see him walking by here right there. Now if you can see, there's a shadow right there. Now I have a program called 3D Studio Max, and here's the same angle. So let me show you what I've done here. I've taken two different images, satellite images, and they're north-south oriented, and in 3D Studio Max I have them placed the images onto two different planes, all right? And then I have a sunlight system. See this right here? That's the daylight system. And if you select the daylight system, let's put the time where it matches the time frame in the video, all right? So right over here on the right-hand side of the screen, if you don't have HD, it might be hard to see, but this is at, right now it's at 10 o'clock. So let's switch it to 9:57, which is the time that the surveillance footage has on it. So if you can see right here, I have it set for 9:57, and it's September 10th, 2025, and it's -6 UTC time. So you can actually have it set to -7 and then click on daylight savings time, and it would turn out to be exactly the same. All right, so I have everything set correctly. Also, you can get the location, and in here I have it set to Orem, Utah. So all of those are necessary to get an accurate shadow. You have the location, you have the date, and a time frame. All right, so let's take a look at this camera. Now, this is where the camera is on this house. It's just like this. Let me go straight up and down, look at it, and there's the camera. It's right off that point, facing this way, and Tyler Robinson is walking basically right in that area. So let's go back to that video. There's the driveway. There's the bush at the end of it. Go back to 3D Studio Max. There's the bush right there. He's walking by right there, and we're going to look through that camera, and then I'm going to render the scene, and I put a cylinder right where Tyler Robinson would be standing, as I've explained. And then look, see how the shadow goes off just slightly to the right of the cylinder? You can see it right there. See that? That's the shadow from the sun being set up exactly how we have it set to 9:57 on 9/10/2025 in Orem, Utah. All right, so you can definitely see it right there. All right, so that time is correct, 9:57. So now let's take a look at the other location, which is the TMZ camera. This is the second one that was released, the secondary camera. The other one is just north of that. So we're going to take a look at this one, and this is the shot. This is where Tyler Robinson is standing. So what we're going to do is get out Adobe Premiere here and move it forward to one of those shots. Now this is a good example right here. We have no time associated with this camera here, except the other camera shows that this is right around 11:50. So we can assume this is right around 11:50. And we go, let's just put it right on that line, and he's straight up in the air right there. Okay, so look at the shadow angle. It's going just like that. So let's take a look at what we have in 3D Studio Max here. So we see that, and let's go back to Adobe Premiere. So we're right in the same spot, that cylinder. So you see the angle right there? Where it's just gonna get into that side, that line that's right there. So it just would go like right there from that position. So let's go ahead and render out the shot. So it should go back by right there if we switch the time to 11:50. Okay, and then I'm going to render it again, and let's see what happens. And we're going to render it right here, and you'll even notice that on the cylinder itself, the shadow is on the correct side. You can see right there, it's lit on the right. There's the shadow. And let's see where it goes. Now I made this longer so we could extend it out. And see, look at that. It goes, that's the side line right there, and it goes right in the same position. So that is correct. That is absolutely accurate. That's right around 11:50. And here's an example of both of them side by side. So here is Tyler Robinson, and this is the cylinder in the same location. See right there, you have that line, and there's one in the middle. I'm having him stand right by that. And if you notice, the angle of the shadow is absolutely consistent with it being 11:50. All right. So now let's take a look at the key image here. So we have two images that we verified that shadows are consistent with the time frame. So let's go ahead and switch this over to 8:06 in the morning. So let's fix the time frame here. So this would be, let's make this 8:06. 8:06. And let's render it and see what happens. And after we render it, we'll compare it to the image that was put out there in the video where he's walking by and there's a shadow walking by. Now 8:06 in the morning, it's still, you know, the sun's only been up for less than an hour, so it's not really that bright. So let's take a look. We'll still be able to see the shadow angle at 8:06 in the morning. Okay, so can you guys see the shadow angle here? It's almost straight off, and like here's the grout line and another grout line. See how it just kind of goes almost straight off? I mean, straight would be right like that, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind when we're looking at the surveillance footage. So here we go. We're going to go to Adobe Premiere, and we're going to look at, let's go back to that footage that was assigned to 8:06 in the morning. Well, look at the angle of that sun right there. See that? So we'll put him in that same spot right there. Look at that. That's not even close. And in fact, if you drew a line from there, it would be just left of that line. So if you drew it out and went like just like that, it would be just left of this grout line. So that's not even close. It's definitely not 8:06. So let's go back to 3D Studio Max, get the light system, and then we know what the angle was at 11:50, so it's somewhere in between that. So let's go ahead and make this something like 9:30 or so. Right? And we'll just kind of look at it roughly here. We hit the render button. So this would mean it was before the 9:57 video, but just much later than 8:06. So let's see what it says. And when I say, let's see what it shows us where the shadow would go. If it's anything to the right of where that last shadow was from, then we know it's later than that. So here it goes rendering. And you can see the angle's sharper now, for sure. And it's supposed to be left of that line before the next grout line. And it is not. See, it needs to be over here. So that means it's later. So then I said, okay, if it's later, then maybe it's after 9:57. So let's go to like 10:05. All right, we're going to switch that right now. So here we go. We're going to switch that to 10:05. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it 10:06 because they were saying it was 8:06. And I'm just going to assume that they're 2 hours off for some reason. And let's hit the render button. And here we go. Takes a little bit to render here. But this program's been incredible for me over the years, being able to determine the time of video when you don't have a time code given with it. And that's what we have here. And I think this answers a lot of questions. So if we take a look at this, I'll just kind of zoom in a little bit to maybe here. I have to pan out slightly. And then look at this. That's exactly the same. Notice how that is coming in, and it would go right to the left of that grout line. So it might even be slightly later, like 10:08, something like that. But it's after the other shot. And here is a side-by-side comparison. So this is an unknown time frame, except we do now know approximately what time it was. So you can see, I mean, this is not at 8:06 in the morning. And I did check this grout line here, or whatever this is right here. There's shadows in there too, but the first line right there is the actual grout line, and you can compare it to the flower bed. See how it's just off of the flower bed there? And we take a look at Adobe Premiere, see how it's just right there. Take a look at that again. Yep, and the angle's just different, but it's definitely, this one here is not the grout line of each of those slabs because it's way out there. It's the first one, all right? So you can see the shadow goes this direction and goes in past this grout line right over there, which makes that very likely to be right around the 10:06 time frame. So when we look at Google Earth here, that means, I like to look at it from this angle. He was right over here at 9:59 and then started walking this direction, and I think he walked right by here, maybe looked over at his dump spot, walked around this neighborhood like this, around and down, and then came by right here, and that's at like 10:06. Now we also know that he was there in the area at 8:30, and I think that probably is associated with the car driving by here at 8:23, and it drives this direction, and then probably, I bet you from there it probably drives this direction down here, and maybe parks right over in this area, or drives onto the campus, because they do say they see it on campus, so maybe it drives into the area, could even be right here. Gets out, walks around, then eventually he parks his car somewhere right over here, in my opinion. Somewhere literally like inside this block right here. And then just got out the dump site of the weapon, and then he continues down like this, just looks at it, goes around, and then he goes back into campus for a little bit, and then eventually he must go back out to where his vehicle is over here, and switch out to wearing the black pants, the black shirt, the hat, and putting the rifle in his pants. Now, where he did that, we still don't know. It definitely wasn't here at this church. It doesn't appear, because I don't know why he'd be walking this direction south if he parked over there. You wouldn't walk all the way up there with the gun in your pants and have to walk all that extra distance. So I think he did park up in here somewhere and then walk down here and then this direction later. At we see him here at 11:50, so it's almost 2 hours later, an hour and 45 minutes after we see him wearing the maroon shirt heading this direction. He then shows up later, and again, and that's after he must have made his way back. Now, I don't know how long they have him on campus. They said his car showed up in the area at 8:30, and then they start seeing him walking around. Now, how long was that? Maybe the car was there, and then he shows up at more like 10 o'clock. onto the campus and then leaves. That's something we still have to figure out, but we now know that that image of him walking was after the image of him walking up here. Okay, so he walks by that house at 9:57, and then I think it's down here at 10:06, and that makes a hell of a lot more sense. It wasn't really making sense, and it wasn't adding up to the information that we've been given before. All right, so just taking a look at these again, this is at 10:06, and you can see those shadows absolutely work. Right to the left side right there, and this would eventually go right to there. It's just I have it at a different angle. It's a little lower. I could probably pan the camera up on the left a little higher, and it would look exactly the same. See how like this area here is shorter and this is longer? So maybe I'll do that on another experiment here later, or perhaps even on a live stream. That would be cool. We've got that, and so this is absolutely 10:06. And then we have this one just as a proof of the shadow angle. That's the 11:51. You can see that's exactly the same as well. All right, everybody. Hope you found that interesting. This is the kind of stuff I love trying to figure out. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching the video. If you could hit that like button for me, that would be awesome. Share the video and subscribe. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.